1939 was a sad beginning. A German businessman named Oskar Schindler, who was in the Nazi Party, went to Krakow, Poland for a business opportunity. The Nazis were evicting the Jewish people and moving them to a place called the ghetto. The ghetto had walls and harsh rules. Their belongings were piled up while the Nazis pillaged their family heirlooms and valuables. Schindler hired some Jewish people for his enamelware factory because they were cheaper labor than the local Polish people. Schindler meets Itzhak Stern, a Jewish accountant who later becomes his social conscience. He spends lots of money on cigarettes, women, and liquor, fraternized with top-ranked Nazi officers. He meets Amon Goeth, one of those officers, and he is pure evil. Goeth orders the ghetto to be liquidated, and the Jewish people are sent to Plaszow concentration camp. He bribed and paid to get his workers back from Plaszow. Then he made a list so that all of his Jewish workers would go to Czechoslovakia with him and be safe. The list was a life preserver, and Oskar Schindler was the hero.
Hello, everyone. Before the episode begins, we wanted to give you a heads up. This episode may deal with more mature themes and subject matter, so listener discretion is advised. We understand our viewpoint is not the one featured in this movie, so we try to approach the material from a respectful commentary and analysis. We appreciate your understanding and hope you enjoy the episode. Welcome, dear listeners, to Ambling Through Cinema, a podcast dedicated to exploring the stories in filmcraft defying the creative giants of the silver screen. Today we're discussing the monochromatic and sorrowful experience of Steven Spielberg's Schindler's List, released in December of 1993. I'm your host, Tyler Birch.
And this is Crystal.
So as we covered over in the first 90-second opening, we were talking about Schindler's List, a movie that is near and dear to Steven Spielberg's heart. A mammoth of a film that was released in 1993, same year as Jurassic Park, very polar opposites, but a movie I think that everybody needs to experience at least once. Let's go ahead, and like we always do, let's talk about our first impressions of the film.
I didn't watch this movie until probably 2012 or 2013. I'd heard of it, but it didn't seem like something that I would enjoy, even though I enjoy drama. But watching it as an adult, it hit me a little harder than it would have, I guess, watching it when I was a young adult. It was, I don't know, it hit me hard watching it again this past week. It was nice to watch it again because I noticed different things, as we always talk about watching it with a different lens. So now that we are discussing Spielberg and his film craft, looking at it through that lens rather than just a common viewer.
Seeing the journey he took to get here.
Yes.
Yeah, I definitely think that does give it more context and complexity. I could definitely understand that feeling.
So what did you think of your first viewing?
Yeah, so like you said, this is the first time I watched the movie. It's a movie that was always discussed as a movie that you need to see, but I knew how heavy it was, and so it was hard to get myself motivated to watch it. I don't know if there was a better time for me to watch it, like when I was younger. It's a hard movie to watch when your head's not quite in the same space as it is as you get older.
That's true.
Yeah, so if I'd watched it 10 years ago, I probably would have just been bored and moved on with my life instead of seeing it now and understanding and truly experiencing it in a way that I hadn't before. We watch a lot of different media that's about the Nazi regime and Americans and, you know, how we beat them and we did all these things. And so it's good to remember that even though for us, we think of things like, you know, storming Normandy and winning the war and everything, that there were a lot of people out there that were persecuted that we'll never know about. And that's what this movie highlights, which I appreciate. It's not just Oskar Schindler versus Amon Goeth. Is that his last name?
I believe so. Goeth.
Goeth. Let me look at the actual.
I've heard it both ways, so
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, Amon Goeth. It's not just man versus man. It's man versus system. You get a feeling of, you'll never understand what it's like to be in Nazi Germany.
No.
At least I hope not.
No.
I would never want anybody to ever experience that again, and it's tragedy that we had to experience it ever. But you feel what it's like to be in a system of fascism where it's all you know, and you peek into behind that curtain a little bit, and that makes it powerful. I think it was a phenomenal film. It was 3 hours. You don't really feel it as much as you do some other movies.
No.
Which is good. You're in it. Sometimes where you're wondering like, okay, well, this is taking a little bit longer, but it's because of the fact that they're so focused on those sub-characters and explaining their stories and painting an entire picture of what was happening in that camp and what was happening in Poland during the war. So we need those stories. It's not just what Oscar Schindler is doing. If anything, his story is kind of the B story
That's true.
to the experiences of the Jewish people that are put into the camps. I think it's a powerful film. I love that it's in black and white. I don't really have much experience with movies in black and white because I don't watch old movies.
Right, right.
Things like I think the only other movie that I think of that I watched in black and white was like Roman Holiday.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I'm sure there's probably some others out there that I can't think of, but it's not something I go out of my way to watch. But there's power in keeping it monochromatic, as we can definitely see that at play in this movie. And we also know that Spielberg had been wanting to do a black and white film for the past 10 years.
Yes, that and the musical, so
Yeah, he finally got his. But no, I think it was great. Probably won't watch it again for another 10 years because it takes a lot of you. I mean, there's films that I'm not somebody that cries a lot really ever, unless something, like a family member passes away. I think that's the only time I could think of that I really do. But I do get emotional and teary eyed with some movies and usually certain stories. But this is probably the closest that I've been to where I just felt raw human emotion and I felt like I could cry. I was just watching this film, watching the ending, I think is because I was feeling like pretty emotional and then seeing Oscar Schindler's breakdown at the end, like that really affected me. And just an incredible film, one that I'm glad that I got to experience and widen my viewpoint. Even though I said that I don't know if I would have liked it when I was younger, I wish I had watched it when I was younger because I think that this movie is important to expanding kind of your viewpoint on the world. It's one of those tentpole movies that when you watch, you remember that and it sounds dumb, but like there are people out there that are different than you that have gone through different experiences,
mhm.
and you need to understand that. And this is a movie I think that really is a hallmark for trying to understand the human condition for people other than yourself.
Well, I like that it gives a different perspective. Like you said earlier, all we ever talk about is World War II, Pearl Harbor, Normandy, and all of these things. It was kind of like Empire of the Sun,
Yeah.
how it was about the Japanese.
Hmm.
So that was a different perspective. Actually, watching Empire of the Sun and this movie is actually almost a full picture.
Yeah.
Add in Saving Private Ryan.
It's triangulation.
Yeah, yeah,
Because you get the British in China, Jewish people in Poland, and then the Americans going up and socking old Adolf Hitler in the jaw, like Captain America would say.
that's right.
All right. Well, now that we've talked about our first impressions, we're going to go ahead and move on to our Mr. DNA explains the stories and characters. For our more serious films, we don't do the bit with the voice. So
We give him the night off.
yeah. But nonetheless, we will talk about characters and stories, and we will go ahead and talk about characters. Well, I think we have to kick it off with Oscar Schindler,
Okay.
played by Liam Neeson,
Yeah.
Mr. Gatsby himself.
Yeah, you did mention that.
Yeah.
That's Mr. Gatsby.
It just, him at that party in the opening just really felt like it was Gatsby hosting those parties. So Daisy would come and see him and everybody be like, oh, I love Gatsby. Jay Gatsby is the greatest. But no one actually knew who he was. Like,
Yep, right.
it gave those vibes. And I don't think it was a party that he hosted for himself, but it was very much the same.
He took over. They put all the tables together, and so there was just all
Yeah,
sitting together.
he took all the pictures with everybody.
Yes.
And I think he sent them those pictures so that way they would remember him and when he was enacting his plan.
I often thought, well, is he doing this on purpose? But I don't think he was there yet. I think I want to believe that that's what he was doing, getting to know all the officers and
Yeah, that's what he was doing.
right, but not to the end that I think he was doing it for,
What was the end that you thought he was doing it for?
to help the Jewish people.
Oh, no.
Yeah, he
no.
wasn't there yet.
That's just networking.
Right, right.
That was just him being a businessman. That was definitely not at all in his intention. I mean, the thing that I think so interesting about this is he's got bystander syndrome,
Okay.
which is when, and this is like a loose interpretation that I
Okay.
vaguely remember from criminal justice classes, which is when you're watching a crime happen and you say, well, at least it's not me and it's not my business.
Yeah.
And you walk on by. When somebody's getting mugged in the alleyway, we'd want to believe that we're going to go out there and we're going to beat up the mugger and save that person. But in actuality, most people would just continue walking on by and be glad it wasn't them that got caught. This is Oscar Schindler's character. He's the bystander. And I think it really put it into perspective for me in my Spielberg book.
Mhm.
He mentioned he was doing the story and he had the camera in between him and the story. And he thought that meant that he was a bystander to it and he would be able to shoot it. And then as he was doing the filming, he realized, no, there's no way this is a personal story for me. It just reminded me a lot of Schindler's, his journey of being like, well, you know what? In Germany, I'm here to make money and try to live the life that I've always dreamed of. And of course, what's happening to them is not good. But at the end of the day, that's just how the world works. And I'm going to operate in that world.
Yeah, it was interesting. I looked up a little bit of background on Oskar Schindler since he is an actual person.
Yes. Yeah.
He was a spy in the war. He did lots of things. He got arrested for black marketing, but I think he just had that redemption arc
Yeah.
that we love to see.
He has complexity.
He does have complexity.
That's the thing about these characters is that there's no, ironically, even though this film is shot in black and white, it's not a black and white film.
That
Like
is so true.
obviously, like Amon Goth is a monster and what he was doing was terrible,
Mhm.
but he still had that complexity of trying to seek redemption in his own way and then turning his back on it.
Yeah.
There's shades to this movie as opposed to where it could have just focused on the fact that he was, murdering people just because he wanted to and causing violence and just being an awful person. It could have easily just been that. And then that way it would have been, Schindler versus him. And you would have been like, yeah, Schindler, go. Because you add that complexity, it enriches the story in such a way where I didn't really, after he left, I would just like, and, obviously he died. He got what was coming to him. He didn't feel like he was a part of the story after that.
It's true.
When it showed him, and he was being hung, I was just like, okay. Like, I was so more invested in Schindler and the liberation of the Jews that he brought to the factory and everything, and how that story ended that Amon Goth became an afterthought to me.
Oh yeah, I was glad. I was like, he got what was coming to him. Good job.
Yeah.
But yeah, I felt the same way. Okay, we're done with you. So I wonder when we were done with him. I think after the Jews left the Plasgow, is that right? The concentration camp.
Yeah.
I think after that.
Well, yeah, we didn't see him again after
Yeah,
that.
that's true. So
I honestly didn't think we would. It would have been fine if we never saw him again to have that idea of like, because he was created by the system, when the system was gone, he was able to disappear into obscurity, really highlighting, all those Nazis that fled to like Brazil and stuff.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Or I think Argentina. A lot of them went to South America after to flee. So like he could have done that too. But I mean, I think Spielberg wanted people to see this is what you do. Like if you commit these crimes, you will pay for them.
Yeah.
And I think that's why he probably included that scene. But we kind of got a little sidetracked. Oskar Schindler, Liam Neeson, big man, really big man.
Really big man.
Yeah. Liam Neeson is apparently 6'4", which I guess I didn't realize until now.
Yeah.
But he's never felt like it like he did in this movie.
I know. He seemed tall in The Phantom Menace.
He does, but it
Not
doesn't
that tall.
yeah, like it just feels like he's I don't know. When you go to like a car dealership and you see the inflatable like the inflatable gorilla or something.
Yeah.
And you're just like, yeah, this thing's massive. Like the way they shot this film and the
Yes.
big suits that he wore, it just gave this larger than life feel to it. Because there's also just a little bit of like fake to him because as you learn throughout the movie, he's not a good businessman.
No.
He profited from the war. So I think that that's like just another part of like he's, the bravado is he's using as a shield. So that way people won't know that he's actually a failure.
That is true. And he failed some more after all of that. So that tracks. Then we already discussed whether he was a hero or not.
He's a hero to the people he saved.
Definitely.
100%. He did heroic things. You see him go from being bystander who doesn't care about anything that's happening to him to being willfully taken advantage of by Isaac Stern in his factory because he does he's producing pots and pans for the war, which I thought was an interesting thing to be producing for the war, but probably also a pretty secure business. When Isaac, the man with one arm that Isaac Stern convinced him to have in his factory, there's no reason why that man would be there. He can't do the work. But being willfully taken advantage of by Isaac Stern to help out some people, providing when they go into the camps, him understanding he needs to help these people survive, putting them in a factory where they have to leave the camp so that way they aren't subjected to the horrors as same as everybody else, providing things like, remember the cigarettes, a lighter to Isaac Stern so that way he could use that as bribery to be able to get more prisoners to work in the factory. And then eventually putting his own plan into action. These small actions start to build and build and build until you get to the finale where he, saves all of them. He gives up his entire fortune. He says, I'm going to leave Poland with 2 steamer trunks of cash, but instead he leaves with 1,000 or 2,000 people.
I've seen 1,100. I've seen 1,200.
Okay,
so
1,100,
something.
1,200. Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, so instead of leaving with cash, he leaves with people.
Yeah.
And protects them until the war ends. For me, I think what's the most interesting about him too, his relationship with his wife.
Yeah.
She's not somebody that is around. She knows that he's a womanizer. She knows that he's going out and hitting on anything that moves. She says, if I'm leaving and a doorman calls me anything other than Mrs. Schindler, I can't be with you. And once he puts in his plan as action, he does his redemption, saving all the 1,200 people and taking them to his home and to protect them. And he goes back for his wife because he believes that he's become the man that she's been waiting for.
Right.
And she actually does join with him. She doesn't have a big part in the movie, but just a kind of a barometer of what Schindler felt about himself. Did he feel like he was somebody that was worthy of, he was worthy of love, or was he always going to be hustling?
So it's Itzhak Stern, or I've heard Isaac as well. We
Sorry, yeah,
apologize if we butcher the names.
yeah,
We are so sorry. Itzhak Stern, he was an accountant.
yes,
And so I remember Oscar Schindler saying there's 3 people you need in your life: a good priest, a good doctor, and a good
good
accountant.
count. Yeah, that does sound right.
And so it was funny because he says, I already have the first 2, so, and I'm not sure he was too excited to join him. He was an amazing character, and as I said before, to me, he was kind of a Jiminy Cricket to Oscar. He quietly put ideas in his head, I guess you could say, like what you were saying about, bribing the officers and doing all the things to get the people out. So I'm not sure that Oscar would have come up with that on his own. I'm not sure. I know that he had finally figured out that this is bad. I should do something. I don't know if he knew what to do.
No, he definitely didn't. No,
Yeah. So Jack, he went and got the one-armed guy, because they were in that the line
yeah,
for working. These are your work papers,
yeah.
or else they were sending them straight to the camp, I think.
You had to prove your reason for existing,
Yeah.
honestly. So
Okay.
that, like, that guy that was the history and literature teacher.
Yes.
And they're like, well, all right, you got to go. And then he gets the papers that are for machinists, and they say, okay, no, you can stay, because they're trying to erase history and literature. Why would they need
Oh, definitely.
a teacher? But they'll always need people that, can work machines. No, yeah, you're right. The part where he ages the documents after they forge them,
Yes.
the work documents, that
Yeah.
way that he can save the guy. Honest, like, he was a genius for what he was able to do. It's like that age old story. It's not about knowing everything. It's about having the right people around you. That's what Oscar said.
No, yeah.
The only reason why he was successful was because he had Ishtak around him.
Okay.
He took advantage of his privilege to be able to provide Ishtak the tools to be able to complete the plans he had in place.
Okay.
There's very few things that I remember Oscar Schindler doing that was not instigated by Ishtak. And that's small things like the water scene. Like, that wasn't something that he was told to do. That's something that Oscar did. That's one of the very few actions he took that was independent of anybody else.
Okay, yeah. And I was so confused when he started doing it. I was like, okay, is he doing it because he's trying to show them he doesn't care about them? Or is he doing it because they need water? Those were cattle cars, basically. I interpreted it that he knew they needed water. And then Amon was just laughing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So he was indulging him.
Like I said, those moments of redemption where he's like, well, I allowed him to go and give them water. So, I'm not bad. Like,
Yeah, right.
it's those little bits. And yeah, it is open for interpretation. I thought they would leave it a little bit more open for interpretation, where the Nazis would assume that he was trying to, humiliate the
Hmm.
people in the cattle cars, while he was himself trying to use that humiliation as a smokescreen. Amon just saw right through him on that one. And I think that's the thing too. Like, he's the only person that really cut through Oscar Schindler.
Yeah. And vice versa.
Yeah. They understood each other in a level that everybody else around them didn't.
They were vulnerable to each other.
Yeah.
Which is odd because they're in a war. So to actually sit down with somebody, and they did a lot of drinking, obviously, they brought their guards down. So they really got to know each other. So I wonder if Oscar felt bad when he didn't see him anymore.
No,
Maybe he heard, no, you don't think so?
I don't think so.
You don't think they connected on that level?
No. There are two people that were faking a relationship.
Oh, okay. Okay.
They let down their guard, but they didn't really let down their guard.
Okay.
At least, like, in my interpretation of it, it's just he was using Amon, Amon was using him. Amon wanted money, Schindler wanted benefits for the prisoners. So he was more than willing to overlook it. I'm going to give these people a chance. And every time he turned away from it, like, all he really cared about was his greed and his power.
So that brings us to Amon.
Product of the system.
I know you kept saying that, and it's funny, guys. Tyler actually does debates,
hmm
and then tell him about your debate that's coming up.
Yeah, so we're choosing, it was like, who's the best villain in a Spielberg movie? And the person I'm going against got to choose first, and they chose I'm assuming I'm on. And so I'm already trying to figure out, okay, how am I going to take down this guy? And so it's going to be an interesting fight. But I mean, it's not even just trying to tear it down. He really is just a product of the system. His violence is something that would not be allowed in any kind of respectable society. But because of what the Nazis had built, everybody took it in stride.
Okay, because the way I saw it, yes, he was a product of the system,
Mm,
but he also selfishly loved it.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. He loves the feeling of power.
yeah,
He loves feeling omnipotent, that he can go out there with his rifle and take lives and nobody will say anything.
that's true. He was so cruel. Sometimes it was hard to watch.
Yeah, no, he's a monster.
Yeah,
But he's a monster that was able to exist inside the system.
yeah,
And as soon as that system crumbled, he himself crumbled and he died,
yeah,
showing that he would not have been able to exist in any other society. But like I said, it's bystander syndrome. Like you see this happening to people and you just say, well, that's what the system is. I think we all know what's going on out in the world right now. And so many people are just saying, well, you got to follow what other people are saying.
right.
When you create systems like that, you create monsters like Amon. And so this is a warning that people will use cruelty and violence in any way they can if it's justified. It's a reflection of man. You have people that are like Amon who will always go as dark as they can, as
Mhm.
they're allowed to. If we didn't took away the concept of laws, what would you really be capable of? Would you step up and save people like Oscar Schindler did, or will you plunge your hands into the muck and just do whatever you want?
You always want to think that you would be the person that would step up and do something. I don't think you actually know until you're in the situation. I would hope that my personality would get into the muck
Mhm.
to help people. But again, I don't know. I haven't been in this situation.
Yeah.
My hope is I would get in the muck. What about you?
You always believe in a heroic version of yourself.
Yeah.
So you always want to believe, but you'll never truly know until you're put in that situation.
Mhm.
So, I mean, they always say that for evil to prevail, good men just have to do nothing.
That's true.
Unfortunately, because of my experiences and the person I've been shaped into, I'm more passive than I would like to be. So in the end, does that mean that I'll be the hero I always envisioned myself to be? Or will I be that person that's afraid of not compromising and losing something?
Yeah. That's what makes us human.
Yeah.
So we're not bad people. We try to do the best we can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's all you can do.
Yeah.
And so, and you know what's worth changing over. But yeah, I think that Ray Fiennes, I mean, just did a great job with it.
All of them did.
Spielberg called it like he saw Ray Fiennes and he called it like sexy evil. I think it's hilarious because to me, Ray Fiennes is Voldemort,
Yes, he is.
one of the most unattractive things you'll ever see on this planet. So it's really funny to see that he's referred to as that because I mean I don't know '90s Ray
Mhm.
Fiennes. I don't know English Patient Ray Fiennes, or obviously like Schindler's List. I only know him as Voldemort, and then like Bond movies, The Menu, like all of his later stuff. It was a very interesting experience, but he did a great job of portraying his character. Just a lot of I feel like he had a lot of character to Tomon. Like when we first see him, and he's got like his handkerchief to his his nose. He says it's like a cold, but to me that made it was more like he was in, the Jewish part of town and he was like, I don't want to smell because his, anti-Semitism was that deep. That's what it looked like to me. Everything he brought into like his experience with his maid,
Mhm.
everything that he did with that boy that couldn't get the ring on his bathtub out.
Oh, yes.
And he says he remembers, emperors pardon people. And he's like, well, I'm the emperor of this camp. So I should be giving people second chances. And he's trying. And then he reverts back to his old habits, which is cruelty, violence, death.
Mhm. It's just easier for him.
Yeah. I mean, I think him and Ben Kingsley overshadow Liam Neeson, not because Liam Neeson did a bad job, but just because they bring so much to this role and what it's able to do. And Schindler is, since he's so fluid, it makes it harder to be able to track his performance because you don't know where he's at that time.
Very true. But he does know how to do some cigarette acting, doesn't he?
He does know how to do that. He's not on Samuel L. Jackson's level, but
No.
he tried.
Talking about the scenes.
Yeah.
Okay. So you mentioned the party. I love seeing it. I love when, you get to see glimpses of the past. So like the 1940s,
Mhm.
like they did in 1941 and everything. They had, was it the tango they were playing, I believe. So just getting to see those little bits of a slice of life, I guess you would call it. So that was nice to see him just sitting there. You're like, okay, he's sitting there and he's looking at everybody. looking at the room, formulating a plan, I guess, and just sitting there smoking a cigarette.
Hmm.
And that was our introduction to him,
Yeah.
was seeing him go into this nightclub, I guess.
No, it's interesting to start it on a more upbeat note for the movie that you'll be getting.
Yeah.
And I think it kind of mirrors Schindler's journey with the Nazi party. At this time, it's fun, it's full of opportunities. He's going to make money.
Right.
He's going to get his name out there. So he's excited about it. Like he genuinely is excited about being in Poland, starting his factory. So it's very interesting to start that way. And I think my favorite part about that too is, so yeah, it reminds me of an Office episode where they do a garage sale for the office, and Dwight starts out with a single thumbtack, and he plans to continue trading at each table to try to get the most expensive item there. And then, Jim doing his usual shenanigans, he walks away with the most expensive item. But it reminded me of Schindler's journey through this party because he doesn't go straight for the general, he goes for the men. And he begins, bringing women, drink, introducing himself. All these people start to take notice of him in the corner. They're like, who is that? Like, what's going on with that guy? And watching him conquer this room to the point where when I don't know if he was a general, but like to me, like he's the highest officer that walked into that room. What's going on? Well, what are all these people doing, dancing and cheering, and they're having like the time of their life while he's about to have dinner,
Yeah.
and then he gets swept up into it. It just shows like that Schindler is somebody that he knows how to network. He's charismatic, to which you see throughout the rest of the movie. And these friendships actually that he established with these German officers, he utilizes so many times. It's an introduction to Schindler, but it's also an introduction to his network and what's he able to do with it.
All right. So we know that Oscar, he loves to drink, obviously. He's drinking throughout this whole movie. And he has it's Jack, who doesn't drink, I guess. I'm not sure. He did once towards the end.
Yeah.
But Oscar kept offering him to drink with him. Maybe as a sign of friendship,
Yeah.
maybe
Companionship,
camaraderie.
camaraderie.
Okay. Zach's like, no, no, thank you. I don't know if it's because their relationship grew closer that he wanted to celebrate, or was that
That
during
was,
the list?
that was his goodbye.
That was his goodbye.
He
Okay.
thought this was it. They were going to be sent to Auschwitz and he would never
That's
see him
true.
again, and he didn't know if he was going to survive.
Okay.
That final drink where he actually did take the drink, I think is just him acknowledging the journey that they've been on, and that is at the end of it. It was one of my favorite scenes.
Yeah.
It was because you feel the emotions between these two men. You feel what they've been through, their history together. There's just something that's just bittersweet that Schindler's entire thing that he wanted Ishak to do for him was to take that drink. And
Yeah.
he was honoring this as a final request. So I think it was a beautiful scene, and him and Ishak, obviously they interact after that, but this feels like the pivotal moment for them.
Yeah, I
The
could see that. Yeah.
like the climax of their friendship, even though they did work together after that. It was such an emotional high. And then everything else was just him helping with the list and everything. So I think, yeah, it did feel like the end of their journey together as friends and partners.
It's interesting that the two different relationships, because you've got the relationship of Aman and Oscar, and then you have the relationship of Itzhak and Oscar.
Yeah.
So I think that with Itzhak, it's more genuine
Yeah.
than it was as we discussed, with Aman, because that was more of I found the word transactional
Yes.
relationship, where the one with Itzhak was more relational.
I think, yeah, because it started out transactional, I think.
Of course.
And then it grew. You take Ishak out of this whole thing, Oscar Schindler leaves Poland, never thinks about it again.
Yeah.
It's because of this relationship that he stuck around and he tried to help as best as he can. I mean, we're going to talk a little bit more about the final scene, but like
Mm-hmm.
Ishak is the one that gives him like the letter from everybody saying what Schindler has done for him, and the ring, which taken from a guy's teeth, he had replaced with gold. Like this movie has many relationships, but none as pivotal as the Oscar and Ishak. That's why this scene I think is so important, and why it was arguably my favorite scene.
Yeah. So one of my favorite scenes, and I know I talked about this before you even saw the movie, and you even remarked that you thought it was longer, but it really wasn't, but it had that impact, was the girl in the red coat. Everybody's going to talk about, because obviously in a black and white movie, if you see somebody in red, that's going to stand out to you. And we've heard I don't know, a couple of different interpretations as to why the little girl was wearing the red coat. In all this chaos, nobody was picking her up. They were just kind of ignoring her. And she got to go to the bedroom and hide, I guess. I think that's where she was trying to go. I remember her getting under a bed, but obviously that did not end well because you see that she is dead at the end when they killed all the children or most of the children. They're rounding everybody up, remember, during the
I
liquidation and
don't
they
even know when she would have died. It was just he just
yeah.
sees the coat. It's not.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the point. Is like there wasn't some pivotal moment where she was killed. Like this is just what this system does to people, and here we are. Yeah, I did think it was like a reoccurring theme throughout
Mhm.
because of how much you talked about it. So I was shocked that it was just two scenes essentially.
It had such an impact, though.
No, yeah,
Yeah.
I understand, but
Yeah.
yeah, so that was surprising to me. Yeah, I mean, it really reminded me of like Empire of the Sun, where Jim was trying to surrender to the Japanese,
Yes.
and everybody just wasn't taking him seriously. Spielberg, himself has said that this is a remark on the fact that America, especially American media at the time, was just ignoring what was happening to the Jewish people during
Mhm.
this war. They never went out of their way to try to take any kind of measures that would have delayed the atrocities being committed. Nothing like destroying trains or crematoriums or anything like that. So this war was such a big deal for everybody, but nobody was paying attention to the little girl that was running around in the red coat, even though red is the color that everybody notices the most.
Yeah.
I also take it as a loss of innocence
Yes. Definitely.
because, Oscar Schindler out there on his horse is watching this liquidation, seeing what the Nazis are doing, and he sees this little girl and he can't help but follow her. And then he sees the jacket later on, signifying that she had been killed. And it's hard to pinpoint a moment where he's really started to change. But for me, that just felt like a loss of innocence moment, the way he was so invested into this little girl that he was seeing.
I think we talked about this, it wasn't one thing. I think it had to build, but I think that got his attention. Like, maybe this isn't so good after all.
More than everything else that was happening around him.
Right.
He was only focusing on this red coat. He wasn't focusing on all the other people that were getting killed or rounded up or
Yeah.
anything like that. Yeah, sometimes it's the smallest triggers that create the biggest change.
Yes. So then the shower scene. If I remember correctly, the woman train ended up at Auschwitz.
Yes. They say because some paperwork got messed up. To
Yeah.
me, it was Amman reneging on their deal, and
Yeah.
we'll never know the truth of it, especially after Schindler took the maid. It felt like retaliation.
Yeah, that's right. He wasn't going to let her go.
You have the ash coming down in Auschwitz, them
Yeah.
being led, saying they're not supposed to be here. By the way, there was a lady in this movie that kept saying this is the worst it could ever be, and it always kept getting worse.
Yeah, we were telling her, "Stop saying
Seriously,
that."
yeah.
"Oh, it'll be okay after this."
Yeah, yeah, when they got on the plane on the train, she's like, "Well,
Yeah.
guys, it's gonna be okay now," and then they get taken to Auschwitz. I was like, "Please stop talking."
Because we knew it was gonna happen.
This scene with them, having their haircuts, living
Ugh.
through and before this, they're talking in the barracks of the camp, and they're literally speaking about the exact same process that they go through when they get to Auschwitz.
Yes.
And then people, they are killed. They're put through the crematorium, and you see them literally going through that. That is such an intense scene.
Oh, yeah.
I was terrified the whole time. Like I honestly, I was really like, I don't know if I can handle this.
Yeah.
If I'm going to be honest with you,
Mm.
and so just I felt the relief when it turned out that they were being taken just to the showers.
Yes. I was holding my breath. I was like, "Oh, no." Because honestly, in my mind, they were heading to the crematory,
Yeah, I
but I
mean,
guess it was somebody else. But I don't know if they did that on purpose or if I just lost focus. What do you
well, we
think?
just couldn't tell what the buildings were.
That's
We
true.
were disoriented just like they were.
Yeah.
All we knew was that there was ash coming down from the sky. We knew what that signified, and then they were going through that exact same process that she had mentioned.
Yeah.
And then lastly, I think we just got the ending of the movie. The war being reported is over. They had until what was it, like midnight?
Yeah.
So Schindler brings everybody into his factory and tells them the news, including the German soldiers that were taking watch. And he said, "You could kill us all here, or you could go home to your families." He tells, he says, "You guys are all going to be free. Enjoy, like, go and live. And I will stay here 5 minutes after you are free. And if you decide that you want to kill me, that's
Mhm.
your right after what has happened." He takes on the full moral weight of being a part of the Nazi party. And obviously they don't see it that way. They see him as their savior. So they're not going to tear him apart. They give him a ring as symbol of significance for him to to show what he's done. They give him a letter in case he gets caught because he has to flee because
Yeah.
he's a Nazi. So
Yeah.
he has to flee the country now and try to escape the Allies. Here's a letter of us showing our trust in you, so that way, hopefully, if you do get caught, something can be done. Hopefully, somebody else will do for you what you did for us, kind of thing. I was like, oh, this is fine, this is good, and then he has a full on breakdown
Yeah.
because he couldn't save more people.
Yeah, he sure does. It was heartbreaking. Yeah.
He's given away everything, and he says this watch could have saved 2 people.
Yeah.
This Nazi badge has real gold. It could have saved a person. I could have done more.
I
I
could
could
have
have
done
gotten him
more.
on to give me more people. It's heartbreaking.
It
It was
is.
such an emotional scene just watching him just feel like he still hadn't done enough. He felt that karmic weight in that moment because I don't know if he ever thought that the war would end. So he said that what I'm doing is good enough. But once it ended, he said, I could have done more. Now, with hindsight, for a few months, I could have, sheltered more people and they have to show him you could have saved more, but you did save some. That's the world to the people you saved.
Okay, so I can connect this to the starfish story. I think I've told you this before. So, the starfish story, we all got little starfish pins when we graduated from UCO, the teachers. The starfish story is so starfish wash up onto the beach, I guess, and
Mhm.
then they dry out and then they die. You see someone picking up one and putting it back in the water. And a person comes up, and this is loosely because I don't remember it verbatim. So,
Right.
a person comes up and says, "What are you doing? You can't save them all." The person who's picking one up and saving it says, "Yes, but I made a difference to this one." I can connect with Schindler because of the poem, not because I've ever been in that situation, but I made a difference for that one.
Half glass full, half glass empty kind of thing.
Yeah,
Yeah. It's a great way to put it with starfish. You always want to help at least 2 people. If you help 2 people, then that means that you help one more than yourself. And
exactly.
then it just grows and grows and grows and grows.
Yes, pay it forward.
Yeah. Well, I think we can move on to the themes now. First theme is the feeling of omnipotence, which we've talked a lot about with Amon, feeling like you could do anything. You have the power. His god complex
Definitely.
as the commandant of the camp, pardoning people, like feeling he has the ability to do that, even though it literally means nothing. Even with Schindler, like he's got so much money now, he just feels omnipotent. He starts doing things that gets him into jail, like when he kissed the Jewish girl.
Yes, yes, that is true.
That's that feeling. He's drunk on his own power. He feels he can do anything. He's got these connections. He's got this money. So now he's untouchable. This movie is just about that feeling, chasing that power, that greed.
It is great.
Yeah,
It really is to think that you're capable of more than you really are,
yeah.
especially the way Amon did it with such violence. And, Oscar did it kind of not with violence, but just, I don't know.
He wielded his power carelessly. He didn't
Okay.
care about what happened to the Jewish people he was hiring. He was just hiring them because they were cheaper.
Yes, that is true.
He was just very reckless with the power that he had, and he finally come to understand what that power was, and then use that to save people. And then I think the last theme is just the complexities of morality.
Hmm.
As we've discussed, there is no black and white in this movie.
No.
It's everybody has some shade of complexity to them, and that's what makes it feel so real. You've seen good people do bad things. You've seen bad people do good things.
Hmm.
You've seen everything that's in between. That's just how life is. And you see so many people in this movie just trying to get by
Yeah.
in all kinds of different ways. So that's why I think if you go into this expecting it to, because I mean, I didn't know anything about this movie going into it. Like I knew baseline Liam Neeson saves people and Ray Fiennes is bad guy. Like that's broad strokes what I knew about this movie. I wasn't expecting to come out of this feeling like the person I thought was going to be an untouchable figure that was just a paragon of good
Mm.
wouldn't be.
Right.
He had done things he shouldn't have. He had committed crimes. He had wielded his power recklessly. There was a lot of shades of gray in him. And even with Ray Fiennes, he's a monster. Never
Yes.
going to say he wasn't a monster. He was violent, cruel, terrible, absolutely awful person.
Mm.
But there was also still these blips where you could see that he was still trying to make some sort of right decision, even if he didn't know what that was. And it still added that complexity to it, to a character that you just, you still hate, but there's more to it.
You're right.
There's more depth to this character than you expected.
Because you're thinking, oh, he's trying.
Yeah, you start getting lulled into false
Yeah.
sense of security. When he was pardoning people, you're like, oh, well, maybe
Okay.
this is a change of heart. Maybe
Okay.
we can improve conditions, He's still a monster, but like maybe all we care about is what's happening to the people. Maybe things will be okay after
Yeah.
this. And then you see him just succumb to evil again. He can't resist that allure. So it's kind of, like we talked about before, like a red herring.
Yeah.
You're seeing the redemption of Schindler. Well, guess what? Amon's getting redeemed too.
Yes.
And you're like, okay, cool. Here we go.
Yeah.
Things are going to get better. And then you get let down. So the symbols. First up, we got the list. Should I call it absolute good?
Yes, and then
The list is fact. Like
yeah,
it's not
yeah.
anything that you can warp or change.
Nope.
The names on this list are the names of the people going to be saved. That's true. It's clear as day. That's on that paper. These people are the people that are going to be saved. It also just kind of showed his mindset as an accountant.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah, very factual. Schindler, stop with the emotions. All that matters is the fact that we've written these names down, and these people will be taken with us, and we should be able to hopefully save their lives.
Yeah. When I first watched this movie, I didn't think there was actually a list. I thought it was code for something, and
Hmm.
behold, there it is. It's an actual list.
Yeah, and the next, I think the red coat. We've talked about that a lot.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's anything else we need to talk about.
No.
So why don't you go ahead and tell me more about the stones?
At the end of the movie, they actually went to Jerusalem, the survivors and the actors, and I didn't notice it till you pointed it out.
And this is in present day, like
Yeah.
yeah.
And so they were putting stones on Oskar Schindler's tomb. I didn't know why. Figured there was some kind of significance. What I found was that the Jewish people believe that you can use stones to mark something important, and they're being very reverent about it. It was very touching when I found out why they were putting the stones on the tomb. And they each did it. And so you can see a ring of stones around his tomb. So yeah, I guess it affected me more than I thought it did.
There's somebody that didn't do stones.
Because this person wasn't Jewish, they put 2 red roses, and that was Liam Neeson. Even though he played him, he didn't put stones. But I love that you didn't see his face. So yeah, it was very touching.
It was a
we'll
great
just
way
say
to
that.
it was a great way to end it.
Yeah,
Because we thought that was it. We thought it was
I know.
Schindler left, and that was supposed to be the end of the movie. So bringing in the people, and it really leaves it up to just interpretation. Because yeah, like you said, you didn't know that those were the actors. It took me a minute to wonder because I literally just saw the kid
Yeah,
and then an old man next to the kid. And I was like, the old man looks really a lot like the kid.
yeah.
And I was like, what is happening here? And then finally clicking that this is them honoring Schindler as a final goodbye.
So that was quite the honor, too, for him to be buried there.
Hey there, are you looking for new cookware? Why don't you head on over to Schindler's Enamelware Warehouse for the going out of business sale. Get 2 pots for the price of 1. If you want to have a party, you should always have a Schindler. Now that we've talked about the silver screen, it is time to go behind the scenes with our The Shark Is Not Working. So I know you did a lot of the behind the scenes. Do you want to go ahead and tell us a little bit about the origin story of how this all happened?
Everybody loves a good origin story. So Poldek Pfefferberg was an actual survivor and one of Schindler's Jews, which is what they're called. He convinced Thomas Keneally to write the story about Oskar Schindler.
He had just walked in to get a leather goods store
That's
to get
right.
a briefcase.
Yes.
And that's how he met this man.
Yeah. Basically, Poldek, which actually goes by Leopold, said, hey, I'm going to die soon. We need to get this down so nobody forgets. He wrote the book, which Thomas Keneally named it Schindler's Ark, and we were commenting on the cover art.
Yeah, so it's a Star of David that's made out of barbed wire. You had mentioned it was a weird Star of David, and I was trying to figure out what you meant. So yeah, and I think that's such an evocative image, the barbed wire of the fences of the camp. It's hard to say that just like a symbol evokes struggle and pain and torment, but like that's what it did for me. It was very surprising, yeah.
He won the Booker Prize, which I wasn't sure what that was, so I had to look it up. It's a premier international literary award for the best sustained work of fiction written in English and published in the UK or Ireland.
Okay.
It's a big deal. So then in 1982, Sid Sheinberg, which we know as
Spielberg mentor.
Yes, the president of MCA Universal, he read the book and decided that Steven should make this movie. Do you remember what he said?
So he called him on the Sunday that ET came out.
Okay.
For their earnings call to tell them how the weekend went. And he says, hey, I'm going to send you this book review. Then he sends him the book. Then he gets him the rights.
Yeah.
And he says, you will make this movie.
But Steven wasn't ready.
No, yeah.
He just made E.T. He wasn't quite ready to do his serious.
He wasn't guy who's going to make a movie about, Nazi Germany kind of thing. Makes sense why he felt he wasn't ready in that because this was back in 1983, so right before Temple of Doom.
Yeah.
Before he started doing like Color Purple, Empire of the Sun, really starting to go on that journey, having kids of his own, growing up,
Yeah.
meeting Kate Capshaw.
Returning to Judaism.
Yeah?
Yeah, because when he was a kid, he was embarrassed to be Jewish
Okay.
because it meant he was different
Right.
and he didn't want to be different. So he kind of turned away from Judaism for a long time.
Okay.
And then when he met Kate Capshaw and they started having kids, he had Max, he returned. And that happened before the movie.
Okay.
This gave Schindler's List another layer. In my opinion, he wasn't ready because he wasn't practicing Judaism in those days. So that's my interpretation.
I can definitely think that'd be a factor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How could you make a movie about something you don't believe in at the time?
Yeah. For the role of Itzhak Stern, Dustin Hoffman was approached first. As you know him as Hook from 1991, so right before the movie, and he turned it down.
I don't know if I could picture him as it's Stern. Ben Kingsley had some kind of, I don't know, the gravitas, does that, because it was such a serious role. I couldn't imagine Dustin Hoffman, but you know what? I say that about all the casting, so.
Yeah, it's true. It really just boils down to when you work with Spielberg, Spielberg thinks about you for later things. But no, Ben Kingsley knocked out of the park. I think it's really interesting that the year that we got Sir Richard Attenborough as John Hammond,
Yes.
director of Gandhi,
Yes.
we got Ben Kingsley, who portrayed Gandhi in another Spielberg production.
The same year.
Terrible wig.
Well.
I will say that, but fantastic performance. He did such a good job. I was really, really impressed with him. And yeah, there's something about it. It's just a certain authenticity to the character,
Yes.
which is so interesting. So for the role of Amon Goth, Steven saw Ray Fiennes in a TV movie about Lawrence of Arabia, and he did 3 tests. After one test, Spielberg cast him without watching the other 2. So I guess he was just trolling him. I don't know.
Fun connection. Lawrence of Arabia was Steven Spielberg's favorite movie.
Oh yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
So,
There we go.
yeah,
So that's probably why I checked it out.
he's like, okay.
I like this guy. This guy's
Yeah.
going. So, and then the role of Oscar Schindler. There was many actors considered. Some that were mentioned were Kevin Costner, Mel Gibson, Costner maybe.
I don't know. You know what? He did really good in Dances with Wolves,
Okay.
which I believe was Best Picture, or he got an
Something like that,
Oscar.
yeah.
It was really good. It was very dramatic. It didn't quite have the same emotional complexity
Mm.
as this movie. So maybe.
Okay. Mel Gibson, no.
Yeah.
Especially not with how he turned out to be. Harrison Ford naturally gets offered every single role. But what's interesting about that one is that Harrison has Jewish heritage. And
Okay.
he said he wanted Oscar Schindler to be played by somebody who was not Jewish. So that's why he turned down the role.
Okay.
And then finally, Warren Beatty, who I only know from Dick Tracy.
He can do serious stuff.
Yeah, he seems like the kind of guy that can maybe do the larger than life aspect of it.
Yeah.
Ultimately, he would decide not to do anybody that was well known. He wanted the story to speak for itself. So Liam had actually done several tests for the role, and during his theater performance, he was doing Broadway, I think, at that time. And during his performance, Spielberg saw him do a part where he kissed somebody's mother-in-law on the cheek, both cheeks, I think.
Hmm.
And Kate Capshaw remarked that Oscar would have done the same. So they met him afterwards. And I think by like that Monday, he had the part.
Yeah.
And that's true. I mean, that's exactly something that Schindler would do.
So Steven did make a cameo in this movie. He was a liberated survivor in the last scene. Of course, you probably couldn't recognize him because that's how he is. So
I think that's almost 10 years since his last cameo in his movies, because it was Temple of Doom.
that's right.
Yeah.
Branko Lustig played the maitre d' in the club. He was a Holocaust survivor, and he was the Croatian producer on the film.
For the writing, Thomas Keneally wrote the first script. So author writing the first script, same as Jurassic Park. Spielberg thought that too much attention was being paid to secondary characters, which I find very interesting
Yeah,
because this movie is secondary characters.
it is.
So I'm very curious what angle it was. Maybe it just wasn't as fleshed out as it would become. So that's why
Probably.
he didn't like it. And then Thomas Lutke, who was a journalist and won an Oscar for Best Adapted Screenplay for Out of Africa back in '85. He spent 3.5 years trying to match Spielberg's vision. I know it's kind of an aside from the writing. Spielberg was feeling pressured to make this movie. We started trying to talk to other directors about directing it because he wasn't ready. So we talked to Roman Polanski, who said he didn't want to do it because he had his own experiences during World War II. And so he didn't want to tell a different story. He would want to tell his own story. And that kind of became The Pianist, which came out.
Yeah.
There's other names that are going around, De Palma, Sidney Pollack, but the biggest name was Scorsese, who was given the film to direct when he commissioned Steve Zalian to rewrite the script, which he did, and then it kind of was a little bit too lean, so Spielberg took him to go look at all the different filming locations, Auschwitz, things like that, and he built it out to being like 195 pages. And Spielberg loved it so much, he said, I'm gonna shoot everything that's on this page. So
And he wanted the movie back.
yes, yeah. At that point, he wanted the movie back, so he said, Scorsese, hey, this movie means a lot to me because it's been in the back of his mind for 10 years. And he said, if you're thinking about something for 10 years, then you need to do it. And so he said, how about you direct the remake of Cape Fear, and then I'll direct Schindler's List. And Scorsese says that people might not remember Cape Fear as much as Schindler's List, but he felt really glad that he did because it was a story that Spielberg needed to tell. Although we missed out on the opportunity of Robert De Niro being Oscar Schindler.
Who was the star of Cape Fear.
Yes, who was the star of Cape Fear. Which was all right. Well, how about you hit us with some production facts?
Okay, so the only set built for the movie was a replica of Plaszow, which was the concentration camp. It had 34 barracks, 7 watchtowers, and even the road into the camp, which we noticed was paved with Jewish tombstones, was built from the original plans in a quarry. The World Jewish Congress did not allow filming in Auschwitz. It is sacred hallowed ground. They were afraid Hollywood would deface it in some...
do their thing.
Yeah, which, that's fair.
Yeah.
The film's concluding scene was filmed in Jerusalem at the actual tomb of Oskar Schindler. It took 92 days to complete filming.
Kept it lean.
Yep. He learned his lesson from...
He's always learning that lesson.
Yeah, I know. In a show of support, Stephen's wife, Kate Capshaw, and their 5 children stayed in Krakow during filming, which is good because he needed his family around him.
He literally said this is one of the things that saved his life was having Kate Capshaw with him while he did this film.
Absolutely. Something I found interesting was there were no cranes or modern camera devices used in this movie. It was mostly handheld camera work, and he did most of it.
That is interesting.
Yeah.
Wow, okay.
So that really drives home the point of using the camera as a barrier. He was the one running around.
Yeah.
So
kind of a guerrilla style of filming too.
Yes.
Kind of fits what was occurring in the movie.
So he filmed in black and white for the low cost, and because all of the documentaries and things that he watched about World War II and the Holocaust were in black and white. So that's why he did it. And he said he felt most like an artist because he was using crude tools.
I loved the candle. Remember at the very beginning?
Yes.
The candle burns and then it goes to black and white.
Yes.
That was a great way to transition it.
It really was. So Universal wanted the movie to be shot in color. Spielberg wasn't having it.
Yeah. He's been wanting to do that for a long time, and this was the right time to make a black and white movie.
So he wanted to shoot it with the actors speaking German and Polish with English subtitles, which I'm glad he didn't. Mel Gibson did that in The Passion of the Christ, where they did Aramaic and had English subtitles. And I feel like I know he wanted to be true to the original content. I'm a person who loves to have the captions on. Doesn't matter what I'm watching. In that aspect, with The Passion of the Christ, it really took away from what was going on screen because it was a very dramatic, heavy movie. So I'm really glad he didn't do that. That was a good creative decision, I feel.
Yeah, it would have alienated the audience.
So you want to talk about our friend John Williams?
Sure. So yeah, our musical marvel, we tried to find out as much information as we could, but there really just wasn't anything. It's hard to find information about Williams. He didn't want to score this movie.
Yeah.
Not because he just was like, I don't want to be bothered by it, but he watched the rough cut of the movie and he actually left the room and cried. And he told Spielberg he didn't think that he needed a better composer to compose this film. Spielberg told him all his better composers are dead. So he muscled through, and I mean, I think it was a great score.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. One of his more unique ones, I think, because a lot of times I would listen to his scores. I can always hear tones of either future movies or past movies he's done. This one, I didn't really feel it as much.
No. It felt like it was the standalone it needed to be.
Thought that was really interesting. His reverence for the material. He's like, and also how even if you can be one of the greatest composers in modern filmmaking and still think maybe you need somebody else.
That's humility.
That is, yeah. So it speaks a lot about his character.
Yeah.
And it speaks a lot about his relationship with Spielberg. That Spielberg could just off the cuff be like, nah, they're all dead, bro.
It's got to be you.
You're stuck with it.
Yep.
Some miscellaneous facts. Why don't you tell the folks what lifted Spielberg's spirits while he was dealing with shooting this film post-production for Jurassic Park?
Steven Spielberg and Robin Williams were friends. I don't know how good of friends they were. Robin
They
Williams.
met in a little movie called Hook. You might be
Oh,
familiar
that's
with.
right.
Yeah.
That's right. That doesn't mean they were good friends. So Robin Williams would call Steven once a week because he knew that this movie was deep. So he would call him and do a little 15-minute stand-up routine to lift his spirits because,
He needs it.
yeah,
He also apparently watched Seinfeld episodes
that's
to
right.
lift his spirits. And Jerry Seinfeld heard about that and included an episode about Schindler's List where his parents came to visit and he needed some alone time with his girlfriend. And so they go and they make out a Schindler's List and Newman narcs on them. Seinfeld, he's Jewish. And so
Yeah.
his parents were like, how could you neck during Schindler's List? And they were like, so what do you think about ending the list? And he's like, yeah, that list was something. Just reminds me of, I think everybody's had those high school experiences where they went out and they made out with, a girl
Yeah.
or a boy and they came back like, wow, yeah, that movie was so good. Tell me about it. Well, these people
Just-
were involved.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it ended. It was magical.
Yes. Changed my life. So I thought that was a fun little thing too, because I watched a lot of Seinfeld.
So another fun fact, not really fun, but I saw this in a documentary. Liam was frustrated with Steven and his perfectionism because we know that he tries to get everything as perfect as possible or from different angles. So he was talking about him smoking a cigarette. He literally told him how to smoke the cigarette. Take a drag and then pull it away and all of these directions. Liam was frustrated because, he said, I'm not a puppet, Well, he didn't say that to him.
Yeah.
He was telling Ben Kingsley that he wasn't a puppet. If this is how it's going to be, it's going to be a long movie.
And for context for Liam Neeson, this is his breakout role.
That's true.
He's done bit parts before. He was in Darkman in 1990 for Sam Raimi, but that's more of a cult classic than it is a big screen experience. This is him still very young. This is for Qui-Gon Jinn and Taken and everything. So just to put that in a little bit more perspective.
I appreciate that. So Ben Kingsley, which has been around
Yes.
a little bit longer. He played Gandhi and
Yep, at least 11 years before, because I don't know what he did before Gandhi. Probably other stuff, but...
So he told him, he said, and this is a quote, a great conductor needs a good soloist. So just trust that. Just go in his direction. Don't fight against it. Just go into it. And I guess after he told him that and he just kind of gave into it, it made him a better actor, if you think about it.
Yeah.
So it was a nice mentor moment that I saw in a documentary. So I just wanted to share that.
Yeah. I think it's interesting too, because the past few productions we've talked about has been Spielberg loosening the reins.
Yeah,
so
you're
it just
right.
shows how much he cared about the source material that he was so strict. And I will say on like the smoking a cigarette thing, when you shoot in black and white, it's very different than shooting in color. And a lot of that smoke played a big part of the movie. I get that it's annoying and you have to do, having to do so many takes and being constantly told you're doing something wrong sucks. But you also have to be aware of the medium that you're creating.
But I also thought it turned out great.
I mean, yeah, no,
Yeah,
the
it was
cigarette smoke
amazing.
was fantastic.
Yeah.
Like, I love the haze that it added to the movie. So for this film, we've talked about how it's near and dear to Spielberg's heart. It's a very important film to him. He says that I think his favorite movie he's created was E.T., but the best movie he's created is Schindler's List.
Mm-hmm.
Something like that. This is the movie that he felt is the best that he's ever created. Not that it's like his personal favorite, but objectively. So for this film, he didn't actually take a profit from the film. It's his own money to found the Shoah Foundation, which records its stories from the Holocaust, Bosnia, Rwanda, and other locations with genocide to provide to schools, so that way they can show the ugly side of history. And he says that this is the biggest thing he's ever done for the community was the Shoah Foundation, and it's the best thing to come out of Schindler's List. Was that establishment of the foundations. I think it's great that it led him into creating something that's able to record the real stories.
Yeah.
If he hadn't done that, we would have lost so many stories.
And we need the stories.
Yeah.
We need to know firsthand accounts of these things happening.
Yeah. Because, we get those people out there that deny that this stuff happens, but it's going to be harder to deny when we have the, firsthand accounts. All right. So now that we've talked about the silver screen, the behind the scenes, let's talk about what matters to the studio. The movie, the money and the milestones.
Yes.
For Schindler's List, it was made on a $22 million budget, about a third of what Jurassic Park was made, because a material that's going to put a lot of people in seats. It's not a blockbuster movie. Studio was obviously really scared. The only reason why this got made was because he promised to make Jurassic Park. Obviously, it's going to have a smaller budget, better size budget than you would expect for a movie like this.
He spent it well.
Yeah, he did. So it actually did make a good amount of money. It made 322 million, which for a movie like this is absolutely insane.
Oh, yeah.
He's going to have later in his career that 2000s, 2010, where he starts doing more movies that are not this intense, but are in that similar vein. You're not going to see those kinds of box office returns, and that's with inflation, so that's crazy that this movie had such an impact. So that was like 14 times its budget.
Wow. Is that the biggest one so far?
No, the
No.
E.T. will always be the biggest.
E.T. I know. You keep telling me that.
75 times.
Wow.
It's the biggest for the rest of his time directing, though.
Okay.
Yeah, this is the last double-digit one we'll have, really.
Wow.
Yeah, because the budgets get bigger.
That's true.
But yeah, and it was the fourth best movie of the year. Really crazy.
Yeah, it is.
For December 1993 when this movie came out, because yeah, it was December 15th. So people were watching this during Christmas break, I guess.
Yeah.
It was number 2. So first was The Pelican Brief, which I think is a Grisham.
It's Grisham with Julia Roberts and maybe Morgan Freeman.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that grossed domestically 100 million. Schindler's List domestically grossed 96 million. I will say in like 700 less theaters than The Pelican Brief. So that's only a 4 million difference. It must have done really well internationally.
Yeah.
For it to be able to make them because that's what, like 230 more million
Yeah.
internationally. So that's pretty crazy.
Maybe when it went to video.
That doesn't factor into
Oh, that doesn't?
box office.
Oh,
No.
okay.
And then Philadelphia is 3rd, Grumpy Old Men is 4th, and Sister Act 2 Back in the Habit is 5th.
So Philadelphia is with Tom Hanks.
Yeah. Is that the AIDS one?
Yeah.
Yeah. So another dramatic movie that's up there. Really just shows how things are different now. For the Academy Awards, Schindler's List was nominated for 12 awards. It only won 7, so not as high of a percentage as Jurassic Park. Ones it's nominated for and lost was Best Actor, Best Supporting Actor, Best Makeup, Best Sound, and Best Costume Design. So it lost sound to Jurassic Park. Best Actor makes sense. Best Supporting Actor, if that's for Ben Kingsley, I don't know what came out that year that could have beat it. So for Best Actor in a Leading Role, Liam Neeson lost it to Tom Hanks in Philadelphia.
Okay.
So that makes sense,
yes. Yeah. He did a phenomenal job.
So 2 crazy things. One, it wasn't Ben Kingsley that got the nomination for Supporting Actor, it was Ralph Fiennes.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Which, I mean, he still did good. So it's not crazy, but I just feel like the Academy should have been more cognizant of.
Who did he lose to?
Tommy Lee Jones in The Fugitive.
No way.
Yeah.
That's so odd.
What?
I mean, Tommy Lee Jones did amazing in The Fugitive, but I would think Ralph Fiennes, I don't know. Yeah. I don't know their criteria, so.
And the criteria is who's their friend. But yeah, so that's who they lost to.
Okay.
Interesting. But it did win Best Picture. First Best Picture win for Spielberg.
Yes, finally.
First Best Director win.
Yes.
Won Best Adapted Screenplay. One of the few Best Original Scores that it won.
Yeah.
Best Film Editing. Best Cinematography. Absolutely.
All right.
And Best Art Direction. So it did good work.
It did. I'm glad Spielberg finally got his.
Yes. This was the movie for it.
Yeah.
And I think the only other time he won Best Director was Saving Private Ryan.
Which is another World War.
Yeah, World War II. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Well, that is it for all the box office numbers and the Academy Awards. So why don't you go ahead and tell us the reviews?
All right. So our friend Roger Ebert, I usually try to condense these, but the next 2 are pretty lengthy, so just bear with me because they're so good. All right. Roger Ebert said, quote, and this is Spielberg, he depicts the evil of the Holocaust, and he tells an incredible story of how it was robbed of some of its intended victims. He does so without the tricks of his trade, the directorial and dramatic contrivances that would inspire the usual melodramatic payoffs. Spielberg is not visible in this film, but his restraint and passion are present in every shot. So I thought that was a really good.
Yeah, I really like that.
Yeah, really good.
I like
review.
that first line about robbed of some of its intended victims. It just really paints a real picture about these people's lives being saved.
So then Todd McCarthy from Variety magazine said, quote, after several attempts at making a fully realized, mature film, Steven Spielberg has finally put it all together in Schindler's List. Remarkable work by any standard, this searing historical and biographical drama about a Nazi industrialist who saves some 1,100 Jews from certain death in the concentration camps, an artistic rigor and unsentimental intelligence unlike anything the world's most successful filmmaker has demonstrated before. Marked by brilliant screenplay, exceptionally supple technique, 3 staggeringly good lead performances, and an attitude toward the traumatic subject matter that is both passionately felt and impressively restrained. This is the film to win over Spielberg skeptics. So then our favorite, Rotten Tomatoes. So it made 98% on the tomato meter.
Yeah.
And 97% on the popcorn meter.
And audiences hated it. Like with audiences?
Yeah,
or-
with audiences. It's just, I don't know.
No, remember, this is just the people that watched the film.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Okay. I always forget that.
And it's a yes or no. It's not,
Oh, did you like it?
yeah,
Okay.
yes or no. It's not, it's an aggregate of one simple question, not what do
Okay.
you rank this as?
Okay.
Yeah.
One day I'll remember that.
And also the audiences were different back then. They were putting dramas in the top 5, most money of the year. So
That's true.
now
So,
they're AMC artisan films.
oh, yes. Of course. All right. So, what was your Letterboxd review?
Yeah, so this movie, it's a masterpiece.
Mm.
Like we talked about this, there's movies out there that I've watched that people tell me are masterpieces, like The Exorcist or Godfather, and they're great, but they're not movies that really stick with me. They're not movies that I personally feel are masterpieces. This one did.
Yeah.
Honestly, like I truly, truly thought it was. Even if it's something I won't be watching for 10 more years, but
Right.
it truly was an incredible experience. So it's a 5-star movie.
Wow.
Yeah, but yeah, so it's 5-star review. For a movie like this, I don't really have anything funny to say
Yeah.
as my review. It's probably, because I just like to do reviews for movies that I
Mhm.
haven't reviewed already, I would probably just Oscar Schindler, just the 1940s Jay Gatsby.
There you go.
Yeah, but if you want to follow my letterbox, go ahead and check me out. We're over at it's Perch94, BURCH.
Not the tree.
So next we're going to do our personal rankings. As we've said before, it's just subjective based off of what we like. That's made from Spielberg, what we've covered in his filmography so far. Why don't you go ahead and tell us your list?
All right. So, number 1, Indiana Jones and Last Crusade. I actually put Schindler's List above E.T.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's just learning more about it. And, I really think that enhances movies.
Definitely.
And it was already a masterpiece. So, it just added more meaning to it.
Yeah.
So then number 3 is E.T. Number 4 is Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark. Number 5 is Jaws. Number 6 is Jurassic Park. Number 7, Color Purple. 8, Duel. 9, The Temple of Doom. 10, Always. 11, Close Encounters of the Third Kind. 12, The Sugarland Express. 13, Hook. 14, Empire of the Sun. And 15, 1941.
So for my rankings, it goes number 1, Jurassic Park, number 2, Jaws, number 3, Schindler's List, up there with the other 2 5-star movies. I think it's
Yeah.
just an incredible film. But Jurassic Park and Jaws are just in my top 5 favorite movies of all time. So it's not going to dethrone those. But it truly, as much as I enjoy Last Crusade, Raiders, all the other ones, it's just not going to hit the same as Schindler's List does. So that's why I guess number 3. Number 4 is Last Crusade. Number 5 is Raiders. Number 6 is E.T. the Extraterrestrial. 7 is Color Purple. 8 is Duel. Temple of Doom is 9. Close Encounters is 10. Sugarland Express is 11. Hook is 12. Always is 13. Empire of the Sun is 14. And 1941 is 15. I will be very interested to see if this is going to be my highest rated wartime era Spielberg movie or not.
Yeah.
I've never seen Saving Private Ryan, so
I don't know. That's but it's kind of apples and oranges.
yeah.
It's a different perspective.
This whole list is apples and oranges.
You're right.
So.
You're right. We got a whole bouquet here of fruit.
Yeah. All right. So if you enjoy our content, don't forget to go and give us a 5-star review on your podcast player of choice. We are always trying to create better content for you and push that out there. So please go ahead, tell your friends, tell everybody you can. We want to get more people listening. And if you are on YouTube, don't forget to leave a like, comment, or subscribe. We're paying attention to that stuff. So we want to talk to you guys. I would love to create some kind of community where I can talk to people about movies because there's just so many different movies out there and there's so many people out there. So next episode will be The Lost World. We'll be tackling a very rare Spielberg sequel, only one he's done outside the Indiana Jones movies. So that will be a lot of fun. I will leave you with Spielberg's quote, as always: "Through amazing stories and unforgettable characters, we are introduced to those incredible worlds we only dare imagine, and in the process, we discover ourselves." This is Tyler signing off, and thank you guys so much for listening to this episode, no matter the heavier, coarse material.
And this is Crystal, and don't forget to notice the purple.